want to welcome everyone to the Time Talks podcast. Women, men, non-binary, all genders. We just passed Transgender Awareness Week, sending solidarity to those seeking asylum at the so-called border, being attacked with chemical weapons, and to all the comrades that are down there. The music is by Awareness. Today I spoke to Sue Coe. She's an artist born in England and grew up in New York, known for her political art and advocacy. Her work, How to Commit Suicide in South Africa, spoke on the apartheid. She's done work on HIV/AIDS, women in prison who are HIV positive, art on Malcolm X, political violence, and animal rights. Her latest book is Zooicide from AK Press that speaks on abolishing zoos. It also has a really in-depth essay by Steven Eisenman. We spoke about her childhood, growing up near a slaughterhouse, the working class workers who primarily have to do the jobs at these slaughterhouses, abolishing zoos, patriarchy, trendy consumer veganism versus animal liberation, intersections with animal rights and anti-capitalism, as well as prison abolition, anarchism, and the rise of fascism.
I just really wanted to thank you for your time, and I really appreciate the opportunity. And I'm a big fan of your art and what you do and the message that you spread.
Thank you.
I'd like to start out with a few questions talking about some of your other books and then dig into Zooicide.
Okay.
Just to begin, you say that you get much of your art from going into slaughterhouses. You joke around by saying you're English, the first way to get in, and then you draw what you see, and you grew up next to a slaughterhouse. And can you talk about, you went into your first slaughterhouse when you were 10?
I think it was around 10. I didn't grow up right next to a slaughterhouse. It was a block away. I grew up next to a hog factory farm, an intensive hog farm. That was very, very close. That was next door. And then the slaughterhouse was up the road a bit. And so it was, right in front of me, and I didn't find the explanations of why that existed satisfactory. So I started to go into a slaughterhouse, the slaughterhouse, and draw.
Yeah, and they're really powerful, gut-wrenching images. I wanted to talk about the drawing of the workers that you do a lot in these slaughterhouses. So the working class in your drawings often appear sad or alienated, and I believe it was Tom Reagan, he said about your paintings that they show that not only animals die in slaughterhouses. But could you speak about the exploitation that these workers receive, and any stories of how this work injures their souls as well? And oftentimes it's the marginalized communities doing this work, like refugee or undocumented communities.
Absolutely. There was one slaughterhouse, I don't know if you remember this, it was North Carolina, and it was a big poultry packing plant where the boss feared the workers, who are predominantly African American, would steal a chicken. And so they closed, I think it was 4 out of the 6 fire doors were locked. And when a fire broke out, because it was frying chicken in the plant, and it was a fat fire, the women died against the blocked doors. Mm-hmm. And one man got a bulldozer and tried to bulldoze it from the outside. He died too. Mm-hmm. So working class people are treated as expendable and replaceable in the same way animals are always. And in America particularly, the conditions for the people, and that's not my focus, that's never been my focus, but the conditions of staff in the slaughterhouse are very, very, very bad, as compared to, the United Arab Emirates, for example, or Germany, where workers rotate so they don't get carpal tunnel. So every worker in a slaughterhouse does different jobs every hour, and they all know how to do different jobs, as opposed to doing one repeat motion over and over again, which I think the statistic when I last looked is 6 months in an American slaughterhouse before you are permanently damaged. A lot of this has to do in the United States with real estate because they cannot give more space because of real estate value. So in a fully automated slaughterhouse, it takes up a lot more room. In America, they're still doing this single line system, even if they still have, gas chambers for hogs, which that means 6 at a time go into the gas chamber. It's still a single line system. This isn't my area of expertise, and I didn't ever focus on workers as the primary because of speciesism, because I'm human. It would be very easy for me to completely identify with a human being in that situation. However, I did, hopefully, not treat them in any sense as the enemy, because they certainly are not. They are, like any working class person, it's alienated labor. And of course the industry wants full automation, but that won't happen because of real estate value and the space. So in different slaughterhouses all over the world, you'll see 90% full automation. So there aren't humans doing those jobs. It's all automated. And in America, that's not going to happen. Hopefully we can make a vegan country by the time it would happen. But, I've had some of the best conversations with meat packers who do see a vegan world. They can see a vegan world quicker than people that work in, corporate non-profits for animals. Why is that? Well, why is that? It's because working class people have challenges every day, and they can see hopefully a better future, and they know the level of anguish that goes on, and so they want to see a vegan world too. And it would be quite easy to do. It's just, directing the labor to something more positive. I've forgotten the question now. It's such a long answer. Sorry.
No, that was an awesome answer, and yeah, you're right of trying to get to a vegan world before climate change.
Yeah, we could do this. Chris, we can do this very quickly. Mm-hmm. We can literally do it by the next meal. And I absolutely believe this because I know how this works. It doesn't work by baby steps. It doesn't work by infantilizing people into saying, oh, give up meat one day a week. It's ridiculous. Yeah. People have to hear the truth. This is urgent, absolutely critically urgent, and people can do it. But humans do so many amazing things. This is not exactly hard. But they do need to have the information. And the information is blocked at every point, at every juncture, because there's there's profit. Profit motive.
Yeah.
And strategically, you mentioned Tom. I really grew up with Tom. Tom was an inspiration. And Tom said, no bigger cages, empty cages. Yes. Yeah. And, he fully understood the working class. He was very he always did a class analysis. I think there was a massive sideline since Reagan, and, Francione and Reagan were together originally, and then a whole cycle where we wasted time going into animal welfare. 20 years this has been a waste of time. I'm pissed off, Chris. So you've got this 20-year bullshitting about baby steps and, faux meat, whatever the fuck. This isn't the point. The point is, this is a social justice issue that affects everybody, primarily in our instance, animals. And it's not about human diet. It's not about human health. It's about everything. And people can understand that very quickly.
Yeah, and then that's why I love your analysis of where you go with your art and your advocacy as well. And
Thank you.
when I heard about the North Carolina meatpacking where they were trapped in the fire, it reminded me of a modern day Triangle Shirtwaist fire.
That's exactly the same.
And
out of that came a union. Out of that came a union. And, that's been crushed. That options, that avenue has been crushed. Yeah, go on. What were you saying?
Oh, I was saying I live in Denver, and about 10 years ago there was a big ICE raid in Greeley, as I'm sure you know about, at a slaughterhouse up there, and they took the kids and put them in social services after that happened as well, and it was horrible. Yeah. Well, my next question goes into Zooicide. So if people say if slaughterhouses had glass walls, everyone would be vegan and call for animal liberation. But we see zoos not only have glass to look at animals, but people pay to go to them. And many can understand why slaughterhouses should be abolished. But can you explain why you should abolish zoos? And your book Zooicide shows this massive exploitation, but some may not understand the depth of this. And I was going to quote Reagan once again saying we don't need larger cages, we need empty cages.
That's right. Well, I think with Dead Meat, and I did the Animals Vegan Manifesto, all that work, what I was doing was describing what's being concealed from people. And then I realized with the zoo work that the zooed animal work is that it's right in front of people. It's not concealed. And yet people still don't see it. So then I looked at, if we're going to have any conversation about zoos, any sort of meaningful conversation, then we could say the justification for slaughtering animals for food is it's food, which it isn't. So, no, the animal products are not human food. Just as cow's milk, why not giraffe milk? It's absurd. Okay, so that's the commonality with zoos. The commonality connection I'm making is zoos say, oh, today we're about conservation. Now, we can only have any type of conversation about conservation if there are facts, and we have to agree on the facts. The facts for zoos are these. Only 1% of their profit goes into conservation. Therefore, they have no justification. If that is their justification, then they should try a lot harder. And there is even if there's no empathy quota, or they don't care about animals morally. Let's say, well, they don't care about animals morally and they don't have empathy. But if you're going to market yourself as conservationists, then the least one could expect is that they do conservation. There are 2,000 zoos in the United States. Very few of those are accredited. The accredited zoos, USDA once more, are absurd. Just, an accredited zoo has to provide the size of a 3-car garage for an elephant. So, no, you're not about conservation. 48% of animals are, what's the verbiage? Oh, I was looking at this. They're culled. Anyway, they're managed euthanasia. Managed euthanasia. So, until I started this zoo book, I didn't understand just how much money is involved and how much this is linked to animal agriculture and how much this is linked to the corporate face. So, when you walk into, I use this in the book, the Bronx Zoo, the placard of the sponsors, I would make one burst out laughing, and I wrote there, the animals die laughing. All the major corporations that are destroying the planet have their names stamped as Zeus sponsors. Oh, the irony. But it's to be expected. So I didn't know the extent of this absurd setup, when I started it. Because hopefully, we do art, we do work, but we don't know all the answers. I don't know all the answers. Oh, yeah, and one question I get, which makes me laugh too, it's like, well, what do you suggest Zoos become? Like, I'm supposed to point out the problem and give you the solution. Yes, I'm just this poor old lady working in the woods here. What? I can't, fix it all for you. Sorry. Oh, yes, let's make zoos into, sanctuaries. No. No. I don't want zoos to be sanctuaries. I want zoos for everyone that puts their name on those cages, like DeVos, Koch brothers. I want them living there because they've already told you their address. Their names are on the cages. That's where they can live, right? You'll know how to reach Koch brothers. We can go and have a selfie. Take them with them. And DeVos, and PepsiCo, and Blue Cross, what the fuck, Corporation, and Citibank. They can all be living there. They've got heated stuff behind the cages. They can go into a little hay-ridden, tiny hole, and they could be living there. What could be better? They can stroll up and down and have a garage width of space. That's what I want.
And they can hide their food in a big bunch of leaves.
Yeah. We could give them a tire. They can hang off it. They can swing off a tire. That's enrichment. And put different scenting cubes down so they can scent each other from different cages. So they'll know they're all together, the 1%, all in one area.
Oh, man. So you have mentioned before that zoos are safe spaces for many mothers with their children, and in your book you invoke Me Too and Time's Up. Can you also speak on comparisons with gender and animal liberation and how patriarchy ties into all this?
Oh. Well, in terms of the Time's Up, I allowed myself another flight of fancy, because the male, I was thinking of Billy in LA Zoo, has been, raped is a human definition, but has been sexually molested, I think 56 times, but don't quote me, to produce sperm. And it's a horrible procedure. It's where I show this in the work, because I watched the video of it. It's just awful violence. And I just thought, the billions of farmed animals and zoo animals that are just molested day in, day out. So it's really, yes, women, and yes, we extend that circle of care to others. And that just seemed pretty obvious to me, because it wouldn't be demeaning for me to, put non-humans in the same ethical, concerned circle. Oh, patriarchy, that's a hard question. It's so hard. What do you think? What do you think, Chris?
Well, when I first had learned about the dairy industry and the rape that goes on there, and it opened up the whole scam of vegetarianism, including eggs and dairy. So that really opened me up more. And then when I read Carol Adams' book, The Sexual Politics of Meat, being as a male myself, it made me reflect on more of my place in society and things I could do to help break down those gender forms of violence.
I think Carol Adams is genius.
Yeah, her book was really good, opened my eyes. Yeah,
she just sent me her latest book on the burger.
I haven't read that yet.
Yeah, it's new. It's, she's such an original thinker, and that's why I love our movement. I just love it, because we're all over the world, and we all contribute, and we're more or less all on the same page about what needs to be done. I've learned so much from other activists that, I can't think of a better life, than to go vegan and then find friends and find comrades who are vegan all over, anywhere in the world. Is amazing. And, it's such a solidarity, and that's a nice thing. It's very nice. I mean, I don't think I could have gone on without, reading everything and looking at how other people see this issue, knowing there's so many of us, and so many of us are advanced in this area. Very positive.
Definitely. I'm in a hip-hop group, and when we were touring in Europe, we were in France, which didn't seem too vegan-friendly, and we met some people at our show who were like some punk rock vegans, and they took us to all the good vegan places in Strasbourg. And it was so cool. You can just find a community. I
know. You need help in France. That's hard.
Well, it was very tough. Well, we may have already touched on this next question, but can you speak about the difference between trendy veganism and animal liberation, such as a critique of capitalism, like capitalism dispossesses and commodifies people and animals into property? Can you speak on these intersectionalities?
I could try. It rose in my mind because that's my background. Where Marxism is a given. Okay, that's a given because I'm from Europe. It's just a given. If you have a brain, you're going to be a socialist. So always I link that, and in the book, Stephen Eisenman talks about the halo effect of Marxism. Halo meaning after capitalism, the halo effect, is Karl Marx, was reduced. So where we looked upon nature with wonder, or we looked upon skills, humans that had skills with wonder, now that's just now commodified into being replaceable. And our humanity is reduced because we're always in a state of need and fear, which is, if socialism's not about humanity, what is it about? It's about humans and planet and nature. And not to say, a socialist government can't be as stupid as neoliberal governments, but there's a chance with that. I think we have a better chance. If the whole economy is, in terms of climate facts, science of climate is animal agriculture and fossil fuel. And that's what's driving growth. So capitalism growth is always feast and famine. It's always inflating the balloon until it bursts. That's how money's made. It's made on destruction, growth, destruction cycle. And we're in its final stage, which if you're a Marxist, you think this is the final stage where fascism is predictable. And that's what we're seeing globally, not by a majority, but certainly by a very violent minority in nearly every country, under the guise of popularism, which is how it's always risen. And how does that relate to the environment and animals? It relates very seriously, because unless we look at these two growth factors that we're locked into, we can't change global warming. That window's past, but we can slow down the effects. And to do that, we need people to go vegan, and not vegan in the way of whole foods, not vegan as marketed by the bourgeois class. And I don't think, this is just my personal thought, but the doesn't have much meaning, but I don't think any animal rights activist should be promoting meat alternatives or anything like that. That's got nothing to do with us. That's a business opportunity. And I remember back in the day of, this is the 70s, where they devised alternate models, cellular models, to stop vivisection. Has it stopped vivisection? No. It's just another market opportunity. So what you think is a logical replacement doesn't become that. It becomes a niche market for people that can afford it. So for a working class person without much money, they don't go to Whole Foods. They don't buy faux animal products, which are fine. I've got nothing personally against them, but market solutions are not the solution. The education about social justice and how we want to move ahead, that's the solution. That animals are sentient, have creativity, have imagination, have dreams, fear death, suffer beyond our comprehension. And this has to stop. And that's how we educate people, not by saying, oh, you like the taste of bacon and here's some faux bacon for you for 3 times the price. No, we're not going to be involved in that. And again, I think this is backward. It's slowing down what Tom Regan and Francione devised in terms of animal rights and abolition of all animal use. It's taken away from that philosophy. So no, veganism is not a niche market about the human diet. That's nothing to do with us.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, those market solutions often just are to co-opt this whole movement of liberation tied in.
Yes, and they have successfully co-opted in the United States. That's been a successful co-option. The deed is done. Since I've seen now, the whole verbiage has changed from vegan, which is quite easy, as defined by Watson in 1942, to plant-based and compassion. Every time I see that word compassion, I know there's some marketing going on. So certainly what's happened is corporate non-profits are moving in on making profit. Without, any sort, when I sit down to, when you do music or I sit down to write, it's quite a bit of work, when I'm writing or working or doing art, it's a bit of work. A bit of work is involved. No one's going to do my work for me. There's a bit of struggle involved, and that's positive. No one's going to give me this, tell me I'm compassionate because I send $40 into a charity. No, we're required a little bit more than that. A little bit more is required of us, and we're not children. And children actually get it more than many adults get it when they're adulterated. But we can do this, but co-option is huge, and it's very, very distressing because it's using up mostly poor people's donations. Don't like it at all, which is not to say a lot of corporate non-profits do good work too. I mean, I'm not blanketing the whole thing, but yeah, it's been co-opted.
Well, I wanted to dig into Zooicide a little bit deeper, and I want to ask you what story affected you the most, or stories affected you the most when putting together Zooicide?
Oh, Chris, there's stories every day. I started off with Chuni as which was the first proper zoo, which was at the Exeter Exchange in London. And the first proper zoo was in I don't even have my facts in front of me here, 1870. And it became stationary from either a rich person's menagerie, like a king or a duke, or from a travelling circus that could no longer travel because of weather. So they made a permanent place where people paid to go and see. And they kept this elephant on the second floor called Chuni. and he would do circus tricks and, you know, take people's hats off and put them on and for a penny or something. And they shot him 156 times when he tried to get out of his cage. And it took him a long time to die. So I think, you know, in terms of Chun-Yi, the very first zoo to 1940s in Japan, the 3 elephants who were starved to death in Tokyo.
And that was during World War II.
That was during World War II because they were fearful of bombing, and they weren't really. That was pretty much a lie. They wanted to. I don't write about this in books. I have like 100 times more information than anything I ever put in it, you know, in a book. But it was more to the telling the Japanese people they must sacrifice. And to see the 3 elephants slowly die, these elephants are now sacrificing themselves. And they starved the elephants to death, which took 2 weeks. And one of the elephants just kept doing circus tricks in the hope of some water. And they died. They were starved to death. And then to the present day, where zoos are the first victim of wars. And there's so many wars going on, you know, and I did the Yemen zoo, but I put it in, you know, where just students were running across the fire zone feeding zoo animals that were starving, and they were starving, and they gave their last food to zoo animals. And then there's another animal, this was in Leningrad. Well, it was where a hippopotamus called Beauty, the Nazis had surrounded, was it Leningrad or Stalingrad? Do you remember that? When the Nazis surrounded it for months and months and months.
Yeah, I believe that was Stalingrad.
Stalingrad. They starved the people. They cut off the water. People were burning any furniture for any heat because it was freezing. And you know, the most amazing thing, they kept the animals alive. And the hippo, called Beauty, they went miles to the river to keep her wet in buckets. And if you see photos of her, she's surrounded by children that are skeletons. The children are skeletons with no shoes because they boiled their shoes and belts to feed the lions and tigers. They tried to feed the lions and tigers plant-based, but they wouldn't eat. They started to starve to death. So they chopped up belts and shoes and put that in the plant food, the grasses, and the lions and tigers ate it and stayed alive. But that to me is so heroic. I can't even think of words that could, you know, describe how people survived, how Russian people survived. And not only survived, they kept the animals alive. It's beyond belief. And they lived beyond the war. And it's stunning what humans can do. That's an example.
Yeah, such a powerful story.
I know, Beauty. And she looked beautiful too. She looked really healthy and amazing, just amazing. And then what was the other one? And then, well, you know, I was most attracted in drawing to Cleo, the octopus in Syracuse Zoo.
Which that's who you dedicated the book to.
I dedicated the book to her because I started to research octopus. And I think 350 million years ago, they split from cuttlefish, from squid. And their intellect is beyond our comprehension, because the thing with octopus that science doesn't understand is they have huge brains. They have huge brains but have such a short lifespan, which makes no sense whatsoever. Because huge brains are to do with learning and memory learning. And so an octopus can recognize their zoo keepers. They can escape from almost anything. And if you're in an octopus body, it would like being made out of tongues. That's the closest we have to understanding an octopus. It would be like we're made out of our tongue. So they have no skeletal structure. So they can make themselves tiny to escape. They can change into many, many different colors and recognize others not of the same species. I mean, I couldn't recognize Cleo from another octopus, but Cleo could recognize me from another human. So to imagine that creature just stolen, life stolen, and then treated like this in such a tiny space was, I don't know, it wasn't what I expected. I expected to, identify with elephants, because I've seen rescued zoo elephants and rescued circus elephants in Thailand, and even though they're rescued and they're safe and they're free, they're still standing on one spot swaying because they've spent their whole life in chains. So they're still swaying. They don't go anywhere. They just stand swaying, doing the head swaying. And I expected that but an octopus, just to think, and I was so intrigued by octopus, I even went to a symposium at NYU about animal sentience. Peter Singer was there too, and two scientists who are the expert in octopuses. And you know what? They joked about calamari, and then they joked about eating chicken.
What?
Yeah, so even though they know animals are sentient, doesn't matter. And one of the scientists said it wouldn't stop our exploiting animals or eating them just because we know they're sentient. And I was expecting this to be the revelation that sentience would lead to not exploiting oceanic creatures or chicken, not murdering billions of chickens. But no, doesn't.
No, it's still that speciesism that you talk about.
Yeah.
Another story that really affected me from your book was the story of the chimp who was being handed candy and was taking the wrappers off and looking at the wrappers in the sun. That was a really powerful story.
Yeah, my sister and I, when we went to zoo as young, we were teenagers, I think. That's what we saw. I think that was the last time I ever went to a zoo until this book. And
could you share some inspiring stories of resistance, like your book, The Animals Vegan Manifesto, you say is your most uplifting book. But I really see you have art and resistance, and you show the importance of dual power in your work, of not just resisting, but creating acts of liberation as well.
Well, one of my inspirations is, and there's so many, it's Mike Sterler, who I dedicated that book to a steer he rescued out of a slaughterhouse that had already escaped. That animal escaped twice from a slaughterhouse. And to see, particularly Mike Sterler at Skyland Sanctuary, to see what he does was another notch to me of something just mind-boggling. Because when an animal gets in a slaughterhouse, it's all gravity feed. The animal only comes out of a slaughterhouse in parts. He has rescued animals from inside a slaughterhouse. They've walked out with him. And he has one story that he went into the slaughterhouse. He heard on the radio or TV that an animal had escaped the slaughterhouse, and he went there and he got in, and the cow was absolutely terrified. And he looked at him. I mean, we call them cows for gender. Doesn't matter. It's still cows. He looked at him and said, "You're either going to come with me now or never." And that cow just calmed right down. I mean, this is in the middle of animals hanging upside down, bleeding out. That cow knew, and that cow went with him.
Wow, and that was in the Bronx?
Stories. Was that in the Bronx? Or it was not. I think that was in Queens.
Oh, Queens, okay.
There's a lot of slaughterhouses in Queens. And I'm absolutely, and his vegan tours are amazing. I mean, he knows so much, you know, so he does these vegan tours where he makes people vegan. And the only animals that have contact with humans are the animals that want to. So, you know, a lot of sanctuaries, you know, they have these turkey Thanksgiving things and, you know, pet a turkey and belly rub a pig. Well, supposing they don't want to be belly rubbed.
Yeah.
You know, supposing they don't want to be gawked at. Supposing they don't want to be props, right? Supposing. So Mike doesn't, you don't see all the animals he's rescued because they don't like humans. They want to be with their own kind. But the animals you see and you can talk with want to. They want to be with humans. And that's what's nice about Skylands. You don't have a right to pet a turkey unless the turkey wants to. So that's inspiring, where he's just hardcore rescue. You know, it's like, you know, and so he doesn't ever, I don't know, I just think he's brilliant in the way he does it, because it's very powerful. And he's a truck driver, you know, and he got his first truck. He got a special truck for large animal rescue that has never been used for anything else. That's just what it is. So the animal won't ever know. It's just only for rescue. And so that's pretty inspiring. So, you know, and then the other, you asked me for inspiration. I learned a lot with Lek. Lek rescues a lot of animals. This is in northern Thailand. And she was, I don't know, just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And she can, I believe this to be true, save elephants on this planet by what she's done. It's called Lek, which means tiny. And going there to volunteer, it's not a petting zoo situation. You go to volunteer to help. And it's like $150 a week or something. It's a great privilege. And it's it's mostly vegan, I have to say. I think they have something that's not vegan, but all the food there's vegan. And she's rescued bison. There are hundreds of dogs she's rescued. So you can walk with dogs or cats. And there's 85 elephants there. And they're all free. And you can just see them all as different people. You know, one of the things they do with elephants, you know, the animal exploiters, is they'll blind an elephant. So many of the elephants, she has a blind in one eye or both eyes. You know, with a bull hook, they're blinded. Oh. So they can do logging or circus performance or riding, tourist riding. And so I loved what she was doing because she absolutely is a vegan. She's absolutely animal rights. And she did it all. She put together all the connections. And that was pretty inspiring. I was very lucky to go there and help with my art. I'm going to help do a little fundraiser. And that's another point of doing the art. I can make cheap prints and work that can raise money. It's incredible. Yes.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing those.
Thank you for asking.
I was wondering if you could speak about anarchism, how it has or hasn't influenced your work. I know the anarchist philosopher Kropotkin, who wrote Mutual Aid, was inspired from seeing different species of animals take care of each other. And many anarchist-inspired groups like the ALF take part in Liberation Direct Action.
Do you think Clara Zetkin was an anarchist?
Who?
Clara Zetkin. She was the Spartacus League.
Oh, yeah.
That became communist of Germany.
She was with Rosa Luxemburg's group.
Rosa Luxemburg was her best friend. all that's very, very inspiring to me.
Yeah, and
I mean, how could it not be? I think that's so inspiring. And there's a new thing now. It's the Extinction Group in the UK where they're now going to get arrested. So this was last weekend, a demonstration where they closed off all the London bridges.
Oh, yeah.
See, this is now the point we've reached, is direct action. And that was the Extinction Group. I was just reading about them. It's just really inspiring. And, you know, just carry us off then. Just take us away. We're not moving. Yeah, very, very inspiring. Anarchism, very inspiring.
Yeah,
direct action, very inspiring.
And I feel a lot of that in your work as well. It fits right in with those philosophies. And my last question, I think we've already kind of spoken on, but you've said capitalism in its late stages is when it's most dangerous. Like Lenin has said.
You've read every gobbit of words I've ever said, haven't you?
Well, I do a lot of research, and I'm a journalist as well, so I always got to know who I'm talking to, and I don't want to waste your time, and it's an honor, so it's fun for me. But you said that when capitalism in its late stages when it's most dangerous, and Lenin had said fascism is capitalism in decay. And you've already kind of spoke about the current rise in fascism, and I believe you had said also that fascism is found whenever the powerful exult over those with less strength, wealth, or opportunity.
Well, again, with this, I think, you know, most of us that have curiosity have gone much deeper into just, Trump's here. We've gone deeper into the base and those in power as to, it's certainly been, even though I know these things theoretically, to know them emotionally is completely different. And so I think, you know, my gallery, I have a gallery, and the director of the gallery is a Holocaust survivor. She's 97, and she has full mental faculties, and she said that the night Trump was elected, she knew, she said, I've heard this all before. And she's been a great defender of America. You know, this country gave her hope. She escaped here. And when she heard this, she recognized it for what it was. She knew. She knew then. And I think we all know now. We know. And that's the emotional component where you sort of are in a fantasy world, even though you know about capitalism, you know this is the final stage of capitalism. We know that. But when you feel it, when you feel that tomorrow you could be taken out, and I think it will happen very quickly. And I think if you look at Yugoslavia, if you look at Chile, how fast this can happen from this to something far more deadly can happen very, very quickly. And all we have now is the court system. That's slowing this down. I've forgotten what your question was, but this is very, very bad. And now is not the time to believe in the pendulum theory, let's say. Not that I ever did. But, you know, it's just ironic to me that human rights was always used as a weapon by the powers in this country to attack the Soviet Union. Human rights. Yeah. And now that whole facade has seemingly been removed so quickly. Oh, we don't care about human rights. Oh, okay.
Yeah, in the name of the economy and these other false
America
reasons.
first, really. So, you know, I just didn't know that was actually coined by, was it the Ku Klux Klan or the Nazi Party? It's the identical verbiage.
Yeah, and I think even back to England at the Battle of Cable Street, the fascists in the 20s were saying England first.
Yep, that's true. That is very true.
The old nationalist phrase.
Yeah. And you look at those, the royal family of England, it's very easy to forget they're actually Germany, and they were actually sympathetic to Hitler. They were actually fascists. So, you know, we forget these things about Mosley and, you know, and this is the UK where they've got the royals that can keep breeding themselves, you know, as a diversion. What do we have here? Amazon.
Yeah, money makes you royalty.
Well, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, I hope people have really been standing up and fighting back against it, and the anti-fascist groups have, you know, even though right-wing street groups are growing, the anti-fascists have really had it die down, like the dead turnout in D.C. for that new Unite the Right rally, you know. So.
And in Liverpool, remember that was last weekend, they were going to have a right-wing fascist march. They never left the train station.
Yeah, and the media and both sides are always going after Antifa, but the work they're doing is actually, it is showing results.
Yes.
It's inspiring.
I know.
Is there any last words you want to leave anyone for the podcast?
Resistance is not futile. Remember the Borg used to say that.
Yeah.
No, it's not. I mean, the election results are a lot better than we expected. Yes, even though it's bourgeois democracy, yes, I know, blah, blah. But, yeah, that was close.
Yeah, you know, even if people don't recognize electoral politics, I mean, if you can vote with intersectionality in mind of helping out trans communities and in the meantime migrant communities, I'm all about it. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we have to work with what exists, and we can still vote. They haven't taken that away. And yes, it's going to be a bourgeois democracy. Yes, we understand that. But I think we should use it as we've still got it.
Yeah, it only takes about 5-10 minutes, then you can go back to your working groups, your art, whatever you're doing.
Well, not in New York, dearest.
Is that a couple
the
hours?
The voting machines don't work too well. It's
and they switch the candidates sometimes.
Yeah. So I think my last words are, what my last words always are, is you can go vegan. You can do it right away. It's an incredibly joyous process. And, you know, it intersects with everything else. It's empowering. It's positive. It's something you can do. What do you think about that?
I love it, and I agree. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for tuning in. Shout to awareness for the music. Please rate the show, share it around, send me an email or DM me with any questions or suggestions. It's time@dirtylaboratory.com, Time Raps on Twitter, Time_Raps on IG.